Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back again to Awakened Healing with me, your host, Sheree Buckman. And I am so honored that you are here and you are listening. This actually marks our season finale. This is season 5 finale. That's it. We get to take a break. So myself and then my producer Copper, who does all the beautiful editing for the show, we are taking our break for the holidays, and we will come back about mid-January. We'll start with season 6. Season 6 and a new season will be new topics and a whole new version of what we're doing. It will probably, again, look a little bit more different. We're going to put more emphasis into YouTube and playing with this, and we're learning and growing. So thank you so much for being with us, and especially for those who have been on this journey with us for a really long time, maybe since the beginning of the podcast when we started 2/22 of 22 with Katie, my co-host in the beginning. We've come a long way, and here we are, and I'm very excited. So along with this journey, it's a reminder, if you want to know more about me and what I do, especially with my brand new rebrand that just came out, visit my website at shereebuckman.com. So much more in there, and you can view, especially during our downtime for the holiday season. So let me finish this season, I like to say, with a bang. I'd like to say that it's something beautiful and positive, which I truly believe it is, but it also can be really heavy and difficult to talk about, especially those who are going through it. And so today, what I want to end the season with, especially this microcosmic healing, is the topic or the theme that I carried through this whole season. And it's been about, again, us having this beautiful healing energy within ourselves and understanding how much power we have. And this is definitely one of them, and this is called the family cycle breaker. I don't know how many of you out there feel that this is you, and maybe to describe what that is, a family cycle breaker are those brave and bold beings out there that are choosing to change whatever harmful patterns in their families. Because maybe there's some toxic patterns, old trauma, or just ways of speaking to each other that isn't beautiful, that isn't loving, that isn't supportive. And you find yourself in the midst of this journey of saying, I'm done. I'm so sick of it. I can't stand being treated this way or feeling this way. And so you're on the journey of just breaking it, of severing that cord. And this is really big. And so that's what this episode is about. And so we're going to talk about that. The thing is that some families out there, many families, I would say, I'm definitely one of them, have these continuous cycles of pain and trauma. And this comes from usually a parent or family member who has unresolved trauma, and they unconsciously act out with trauma responses or triggers or whatever it may be, how they have been in this survival mode. And honestly, a lot of it is the learned aspects they have learned from the generation before them. And then what happens is that as they are, again, this is an unconscious act, they're just living life as they have been taught or as they are trying to survive. And then the younger generations they are observing, but they're absorbing and repeating this behavior. So now this has become a learned behavior. And some of these traits that I'm talking about and just examples of are guilt, right? So this was a big one in my family where it's the guilt trips. That's how we do about control, right? And so how we get what we want and we throw guilt out there. And then we find as we're getting older, we carry a lot of guilt about everything. Even people that aren't even throwing it out you, where if you say no, you feel so guilty, if you want to say no to something, because now this is programmed into you, into your DNA at this point, because that was how it was a norm for you. But along with that comes blame. So again, these are from people who don't like taking accountability and throwing blame everywhere else because they don't want to take it on or make the changes themselves. Shame, being shamed by who you are or your choices or whatever it may be, because we're all learning and growing together and we're all different. And so shame could be a big piece in this as a trauma response, or anger outbursts or lack of emotional control. Oh, this is a big one. This was big for me growing up too. Or you have parents or family members, loved ones who don't know how to deal with their emotional trauma or whatever they're going through. So then you have some that just kind of like turn it off and then they don't even live life anymore, whether they sleep all day or some do substance use to kind of disappear into it. And those maybe having really negative views. And so then you have the younger generations that are absorbing all of these negative views because that's what they were taught. They were taught to, with hate or with judgment towards others or anything like that. And these are the cycles. These are unhealthy and toxic traits that we absorb and that we repeat. And this is not a full list. This was just, a brief explanation of some of the ones that exist. But there are so many more out there. But, again, like I said, that we have these younger generations, whether us as children or our children or our parents, from their grandparents. You think about this. This is a generational line. And then the younger generations come in and they carry on this trauma through these learned behaviors. And then we repeat it. We're repeating all of this. And these, again, are just these behaviors because we weren't taught how to process our trauma or our emotions or how to appropriately deal with difficult or uncomfortable situations. And so we're automatically going to go back and repeating or just going into what we've seen. Because remember, as human beings, we weren't given the big handbook of life, of how to live life, how to deal with things, or how to parent, or, all the big things. We figure it out as we go. And normally we're watching other people. And especially in our youth, as we are building into the person we are becoming, we are taking the experiences from those around us. Again, the ones that are central to our life, our parents or our guardians, whoever is raising us, siblings, extended family members, even friends, very close friends. It's who is around your life the most is what we're absorbing and learning how to deal with things. So if you were brought up in a household where they didn't talk about, hard situations, we didn't talk about emotions, you weren't brought up to understand how to process that. Unless, again, now we're going to go into, I'm going to actually break this down in a minute, how we go into breaking that and what that looks like. Because unless you've had someone in your life to show you what that looks like, you're starting from scratch. And here we go. And we're going to talk about breaking this in. How do we break these generational cycles? How do we go into this? Because it's just like our own healing. It's kind of broken down in the same way. Number one, the first and very first step is awareness. It is becoming aware of and seeing these toxic traits and trauma patterns carried from each generation. So now you're starting to see it and understand that I don't like the feeling. I can see that maybe my family's broken. Maybe that's not the word you want to use, but you can see that it's not positive and something needs to change. And so then it's going in to start questioning. You're going to go in and start questioning these family patterns. And it's looking at the dynamics, these family dynamics. How do we treat each other? What are those expectations out there with each other? Because we have to be careful with all that. Because again, some of those patterns, again, those guilt, when we throw guilt at each other or shame or blame, is it normal in your family to have these really high expectations and then you come in and always missing it? And so then it creates more chaos and disappointment, and then there that goes. Or maybe it's having family members who are just not accepting and very closed-minded. And for some, again, that could be absolutely a trauma response because when they thought outside of the box or were more accepting at one point, there are other family members or life around them that shut them down and cost a lot of blame and shame and really hard pieces to allow themselves to grow or accept. And then it's questioning the boundaries. Are there boundaries? I know, again, with part of my childhood, this was not a normal thing. We did not have appropriate boundaries. But it's just, again, this was a learned thing. There was nothing abnormal about it growing up until I got older and really started seeing, I'm like, oh, there's something. It's something that there's not a balance there. And so creating those boundaries, or recognizing at least and questioning this aspect, is really big, because you can't create them until you're aware of it and start seeing where they're lacking. Or maybe there are boundaries, but they're really thick brick walls, and maybe it's not the healthy boundary. And then it's kind of working towards and creating this nice, beautiful balance there, because it can go either way. And it's looking at your relationships. It's, again, questioning each relationship. What are the roles that we all carry in our relationships? Are you a child who maybe was more of the parent than the child growing up? Because that is definitely something to look at. It just depending on where you are in life. And, even as an adult, are you still carrying that role? And then it's questioning, what are you willing to give? Because that's part of also creating those boundaries, is recognizing, again, where these unhealthy imbalances are in the relationships, and then breaking it down into, but what are you actually capable of? And I'm going to be honest here, this was a huge one for me, and why I just went through triggers and all of this piece. This is a massive piece of part of my healing from my childhood, was carrying on roles that were really heavy and too big for me. And I kept them for a very long time because I always knew that I was strong enough, or thought I was strong enough. And what happened was that I wasn't. I was strong enough until I wasn't, and I realized that all the weight of all the roles that I was carrying and carrying everybody up, it was too much for me. I didn't have enough me to go around, and so I had to really look at that and start collecting it all back out and figure out, what am I capable of giving? Where did I want to give it, and where did my energy need to go? Especially when I became and started my own family, right? I became a mom, I became a wife. Therefore, now my energy is more focused in my unit, right? So the family I created. And then it was another pattern of realizing that I never took care of myself. This is another relationship you have to look at, is your own self. Is it something that has been broken within your family line, generational line, where maybe, each person doesn't put themselves first? Or is self-care a pattern? Are people taking care of themselves? Are they recognizing this and putting that out there? Because again, when we are taken care of, we can take care of others better. So it's really looking at all of those pieces. Then the next step, because now you have awareness and you're making all of these questions and you're seeing all of these patterns, right? And so this is kind of how we start creating and seeing where we need to put our energy and where we need to start breaking these patterns. And now it's accountability. Because accountability is about taking action. Accountability is now saying, it stops here. It stops with me. You can't control anybody else. You absolutely cannot control anybody else, and you cannot heal anybody else. That is a personal choice to each person. So we control what we can control, and that's going to be with ourselves. So we take accountability by doing the extremely difficult work of changing and healing for us, because that's going to create the lasting change if you're doing it for you. This is about severing the cord from repeating again. The buck stops here. I am going to take accountability from all the things I've learned. I'm going to unlearn them. The unhealthy traits, right? The repeating trauma cycles. It is the taking accountability and now looking and learning how to deal with your trauma, how to deal with your emotions, how to act and react, how to build healthy boundaries, understanding what you are capable of and taking care of yourself. Sounds easy, maybe saying it out loud, but it's far from, because you have to create change with this. Change is hard. We are hardwired as human beings to fear change and to fear the unknown. And that's kind of where it's at. Now you get to create something from scratch. How do I do this for myself? And I always say healing and finding what's right for you is a feeling. You're looking for that balance in there and that peace. And so when you are starting to create these pieces, or you're in situations or conversations or trying to figure out where these boundaries are and whatnot, it's what is creating more peace for you. Because if it's bringing on a lot of anxiety, it's probably not right. It's out of alignment for you. Now, also pay attention, because there is a difference between anxiety of what doesn't feel right for you and what those nerves are about making a positive change for yourself. Two very different things, and they come from different parts of yourself. So for me as a medium, when I am receiving information, because I can feel emotions when they come in, and I like to say this because I can really differentiate these differences and where they happen in the body. So anxiety for me, especially when I'm receiving it, it all happens in the chest. It's a chest tightening, right? It's very chest tightening. But when it's fear, or if maybe fear of change, or you're about to do something big and it's really scary and it's nerve-wracking, that comes from like the gut. So it's more of a tightening in the gut is where that comes from. So start paying attention of where you start feeling these pieces and recognizing exactly what it is, because anxiety is telling you that something's out of alignment. But your fear, that those butterflies in your stomach, that I'm really nervous feeling, comes from the gut. And that usually is just telling you that you're about to do something really big. Something big and beautiful for yourself. And that's stepping out of our comfort zone and doing some big change. And I'm saying change in a positive way. To me, it's an alarm system in that aspect too. Being a family cycle breaker is hard, because this is challenging, because it brings on pain. It brings up past trauma. It brings on, you are now the front runner, the black sheep, the person who is people from the family, because you're doing something different. You are the one who, again, all the blame comes towards you now because you're doing something different, where it becomes more isolating. Maybe even finding yourself even estranged from your family. But this is a part of the process I really want to talk about, because there's a difference between being a family cycle breaker and one who is ignoring and walking away. And that's a very big difference, because if you're a family cycle breaker and you are looking to create a positive change, this isn't just ignoring and simply walking away, right? And starting your own family and never talking to anybody again. With that being said, I understand that there are circumstances where that can be very positive, depending on the situation and how severe the family line is. However, this is truly about reforming and setting new standards. Because if you're ignoring and just simply walking away from hard situations, or again, the family dynamics, or walking away from the family in general, right? That doesn't actually change anything, and you're still bringing that trauma with you to repeat, because we haven't dealt with it. This is about learning how to process this trauma. Yes, we want to stop the behavior, and sometimes we have to protect ourselves in any way that we can to create that. But my point is that we are not ignoring it. It's about doing the hard work, the really hard work, which is digging in and stopping and processing. And this is really big because we had Emily on in our last episode, who was a client of mine. And this was a big piece of why I had her on in this season of where I put her, because she herself too is a family cycle breaker. And she didn't just walk away from her family. And it wasn't just her family. There was so much in life happening, but she put focus on her own healing and doing it for herself. And because of that, she started inspiring her family to start making changes for themselves. And this is kind of what I'm talking about here, is focusing on your own work rather than putting an external, right? The external shame and blame, because you are repeating the cycle if you're just casting blame on people within your family. They're awful. They need to deal with their own stuff. I'm just done with them. Again, to break the cycle is maybe separating from them, but it's now turning inward and healing those pieces so that doesn't repeat down the line. Because we can go so far in another direction where it's, I don't want to be near these people because I don't want to continue in these traits these people have or continue it down my line. But sometimes we can go so far where we're just negative talking about these other people. That's continuing the trauma, because now you still have this heaviness and you are still bringing negativity towards that. That's not healed. And where all we're doing is projecting now, they are to blame for everything. A family cycle breaker is one where it's a severing of the cord. We're not casting blame anymore. We're not doing that anymore. It's accountability. Okay, I see it. I see where they were and they couldn't stop it. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to cut these harmful cords and I'm going to start replacing them with new things. I'm going to take accountability for my trauma, for my words, my pain, and I'm going to start working on that. I'm going to start by replacing now. We're going to replace all of these severed cords now, right? Not by anger and blame. Now we're going to start first centering towards yourself, finding love for yourself. Knowing that you are worthy of that beautiful love, of creating this new healthy line and these new healthy traits to continue on with your family, right? And guess what? This includes forgiveness. And this is multi-layered. A family cycle breaker, if you really want to break the cycle, it's forgiveness of self, because I know what it feels like to be in that way of why didn't I know this sooner? Why? It's seeing now when you become that awareness of seeing the patterns that even you still carried, even though you were doing your best to do the complete opposite of how you were raised or the toxic traits that were happening before. But now it's forgiving yourself of, I didn't know any other way to be. You know, as someone with a background in social work, I've always seen, again, the trauma from children when you come from these extremes, children who were abused, right? Usually you've always seen it where we parent the way we were parented, or we do the exact opposite. And sometimes one extreme is not the healthiest either, right? If we switch extremes. Because again, there's a balance somewhere in there of healing it. I don't know why that was important, but I needed to put that in there because there is a pattern there with a lot of trauma or hardships of how we are grown up, right? So we have cycles of abuse. Again, we repeat or we do the exact opposite. Usually it's just kind of one of those triggers. I don't want to be like them, so I'm going to do the exact opposite. Which can break cycles, but the healthiest way to do this is truly dealing with it, healing yourself. So it's forgiveness for yourself, but also allowing forgiveness from the generations before you. I'm going slower here and I'm getting a little bit softer because I know that there are some of you out there who probably have a hard time absorbing or even thinking about offering that forgiveness. Because I know some are coming from very difficult situations, very difficult families, some really big trauma. It is a step to work towards that. Forgiveness does not mean we forgive and forget, that we are okaying a behavior. Forgiveness is an act of self-love. It's taking your energy back and it's separating and seeing everything for what it was. It is seeing now and understanding that the people before you, parents, family members, again, the generations that go where the trauma has keep trickling down, right? It's seeing and understanding that they didn't understand their own trauma. They didn't know it. They didn't know how to deal with it. They were repeating again from the cycles before them and also having that forgiveness because they were not strong enough to break it or to change. And so, yes, being a family cycle breaker is heavy because you are seeing now and you're carrying the weight of every generation before you. It is on you and it's hard. It's very hard. But by doing this, by being that family cycle breaker, you are now letting go of all that heaviness, of the anger and the pain. And you get to create your own future now. And not repeating and bringing these old toxic traits and patterns with you. Not giving it down to your children or other younger generations of your family. Because that's the most significant part. Because when you are doing this and as a family cycle breaker, you are not only healing yourself, again, and severing that line, but by doing this incredibly hard work, you are creating more beautiful and healthy patterns and building a legacy for the future generations coming after you. And that's some very powerful purpose to have. I am just here to validate the path that you're on and that it is difficult and it's trying and it's painful and you may lose people, but sometimes you gain them back. Most of the time you will inspire others to start doing their own healing work and creating more peace for yourself. And for so many more behind you. We're stopping it. Again, this is about being that light worker here. We're here to create this higher, more beautiful, more peaceful place to live. It's not within our lifetime, but we are creating this foundation for our future lifetimes. That if we're here and we're ready to do the work and we do it, we are creating that and only allowing, again, the collective consciousness of everyone more space to build and let go of all of this anger and these hard cycles of trauma. We're creating more love and kindness and forgiveness. And that is worth celebrating for your life. Leaving that legacy behind. Cheers to all of you family cycle breakers out there. I know I'm one of them too. It's hard work. And it takes a really long time, a lifetime of work to do. But you are making a massive difference. And it may not feel like it in the moment or even from looking now and all the years of work you've done. But I am telling you it is. Because you are leaving this massive wave and trickle effect of healing for so many more to come. Thank you all for this amazing season and for allowing me this space to speak my truth and my journey, helping you all, and I'm hoping this is just inspiring with it because I'm trying to inspire change by doing the healing work myself. So, have an amazing holiday season, everyone. I am so excited to take this break. I'm going to miss you all, but I will come back into the new year with a brand new season. And until next year, and until next time, be kind to yourself.